Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're traveling deep into Mongolia, a land of endless steppes, ancient shamanic traditions, and spirits that predate Buddhism itself. The story I'm about to share involves something called a Chotgor, a demon that's said to inhabit abandoned places and prey on those who disturb sacred spaces. A group of documentary filmmakers thought they were just capturing footage of old Soviet-era ruins. They were wrong. Stick around until the end, because after the story, I'll explain the cultural beliefs behind these entities and why Mongolians still leave offerings to keep them at peace. Let me take you back to September 2020 the Chotgor of the Gobi Lake and Chotgor. Let me take you back to September 2023, unless the work should be her. In this video, the Chotgor of the Gobi Lake in peace, building an envisage of the important of the filmmakers. A small film crew from Ulaanbaatar, let's call the director Batar, had received a grant to document abandoned Soviet mining towns scattered across southern Mongolia. These were ghost towns in the truest sense, concrete skeletons left behind when the USSR collapsed. The project was supposed to be straightforward: capture the decay, interview locals about the history, preserve a disappearing chapter of Mongolian Soviet heritage. Batar had pitched it as both art and anthropology. He had no idea what he was actually walking into. Batar's team consisted of 5 people: himself, a sound engineer, and 2 production assistants. On their 6th day, they arrived at a place the locals called Barun Kot, Western Town. Their guide refused to enter the town itself. He parked the van at the edge and said he'd wait until sunset. Not a minute longer, he told them. When Batar asked why, the old man pointed to a pile of stones near the entrance, an ovu, a sacred cairn where travelers leave offerings for safe passage. This one was old, its stones scattered and offerings long since blown away. "Bad place," the guide said. "Chotgor lives there now. Don't touch anything, and leave before dark." Batar nodded politely, but later joked with his crew that superstition made for good B-roll footage. They'd heard similar warnings at other sites, old people being cautious, he thought. Respecting local beliefs was one thing, but letting fear dictate their schedule was another. They had a job to do. Before I continue, let me explain what a Chotgor actually is. In Mongolian shamanic belief, a Chotgor is a type of demon that attaches itself to places of death or broken sacred ground. It claims territory, usually ruins or desecrated sites. It's described as shapeless at first, a presence that makes the air feel heavy. But when it reveals itself, witnesses report seeing something humanoid but distorted, elongated limbs, a face that's never quite in focus, and eyes that reflect no light. Mongolian shamans say that Chotgor feed on fear and confusion, disorienting travelers until they can't find their way out. Now, what makes Barun Kot particularly dangerous is its history. The town wasn't just abandoned. It was evacuated suddenly in the early 1990s after a mining accident killed 17 workers. The bodies were buried quickly, without proper Buddhist or shamanic rites, because the Soviet administration didn't recognize those traditions. According to locals, restless spirits lingered, and eventually, something darker moved in to claim the space. The scattered ovu at the entrance wasn't just neglected, it had been deliberately destroyed years ago by scavengers looking for copper wiring in the buildings. That desecration, shamans say, is what invited the Chotgor. The crewman was setting up his camera when he noticed fresh footprints in the dust. Not boot prints, bare feet, but the toes were wrong. Too long, splayed unnaturally wide. He called Batar over. They photographed the prints, theorizing maybe a vagrant or herder had passed through. But the prince led down a hallway and simply stopped mid-stride, as if whatever made them had vanished into thin air. There was no dust disturbance, no indication of turning around, just an abrupt end. In the administrative building, they found an office with a faded portrait of Lenin on the wall. As Saren framed the shot, the portrait fell, just dropped straight off. The nail was still in the wall, the wire unbroken. Batar inspected it, confused. The wire was still looped perfectly, as if someone had simply lifted the frame off and let it drop. But no one had been near it. The sound engineer, reviewing his audio later, noticed something else. 3 seconds before the portrait fell, there was a low-frequency hum on the recording, almost subsonic, that none of them had heard in real time. By mid-afternoon, the unease was palpable. The town felt wrong in a way none of them could articulate. The silence was too complete. No birds, no insects, not even wind moving through the broken windows. The air itself seemed to press down on them. Saren suggested they finish up early, but Batar insisted on getting the final shot from the apartment block. They'd driven 6 hours to get here. Leaving without the key footage felt unprofessional. Their final location was the largest apartment block, 5 stories tall. They climbed to the top floor for a shot looking down the stairwell. That's when they heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, deliberate thuds, like something heavy pacing. They all froze. The footsteps continued, then stopped. The roof access door began to creak, not opening, just moving, as if something was pressing against it from the other side. "Go," Batar whispered. "Go now." They bolted down the stairs, equipment clattering. Behind them, the footsteps started again, but now inside the stairwell, descending faster than any human could move. Thud, 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 thud. The rhythm was wrong, too quick, like something bounding down on all fours, but still impossibly heavy. One of the assistants, Oyuna, screamed as she rounded a corner and nearly collided with something. She never described it clearly afterward, just said it was tall, too tall, and that its face was a smear. She also mentioned the smell, rotten meat and diesel fuel, overpowering and nauseating. They burst out and ran for the van. The guide saw them coming and started the engine before they even reached him. They threw themselves inside and he floored it. No one looked back. But Seden's camera, still recording, captured something in the last few seconds. A figure standing in the entrance of the apartment block. Humanoid, but the proportions were wrong. Arms hanging past its knees, a head tilted too far to one side, and its eyes were 2 perfect black voids. Batar Ratar never released the documentary. He told colleagues the footage was corrupted. Oyuna left the film industry and started consulting with a shaman. Seden sold his camera equipment. And when researchers later examined the site via satellite imagery, they found that the apartment block where the crew fled no longer has a roof access door. Either it never existed, or something about that day altered what they experienced. Local shamans weren't surprised. They say the Chotgor doesn't just inhabit space, it manipulates it, creating corridors and openings that shouldn't exist, trapping those it hunts. What do you think happened? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories from across Asia. Gur isn't confined to the desert ruins. Some of the most terrifying encounters happen in places that still hold life, or the memory of it. Our next story takes us north, to the forested mountains near the Russian border, where a logging crew learned that some sacred groves should never be touched. The Chotgor of the Taiga. Welcome back. We're staying in Mongolia, but heading into the Northern Taiga, dense forests of pine and birch that stretch for hundreds of miles. A logging company ignored warnings from local herders, and what started as a routine timber operation became a nightmare that left 2 men dead and a third who still won't speak about what he saw. Engages happened in late autumn of 2021 in the Khovsgol province near the Siberian border. A small logging crew had set up camp to harvest timber. The company they worked for was based in Darkhan, and they were under pressure to meet quotas before the first heavy snow made the roads impassable. The crew had been working these forests for years, and most of them had developed a healthy respect for local customs. But corporate deadlines don't care about tradition, and the foreman, Ganbold, was the kind of man who measured success in cubic meters of timber. On their second day, a men on horseback, they warned Ganbold about a sacred grove deeper in the forest, marked by ancient birch trees with blue Khovsgol scarves. A Chotgor had claimed the area years ago after a man was killed by a falling tree. "Work where you need to," one herder said, "but do not touch the sacred grove. It has been claimed by something that does not forgive." Goldberg Ganbold thanked them, but did nothing. He didn't tell the crew, didn't mark the grove on the map. The company had deadlines. He figured if they didn't know, they couldn't refuse. And if they accidentally harvested a few sacred trees mixed in with the rest, well, nobody would be able to prove which trees came from where once they were processed at the mill. On the 8th day, 2 loggers, Batbayar and Dorj, were scouting deeper into the forest. They walked for about an hour until they found the grove. The birch trees were adorned with faded silk scarves, and at the center was an ovu built from blackened stones. Around its base were offerings, coins, dried meat, bottles of vodka, horse skulls. Some of the offerings looked recent, others decades old, slowly being reclaimed by moss and weather. Xiaomi Batbayar felt uneasy immediately. "We should go back." But Dorj was already examining the trees. "These are perfect. We could get a month's quota from just this grove." The trees were indeed exceptional. Tall, straight, with minimal branching until the crown. From a logger's perspective, they were gold. But Batbayar grabbed his arm. "This is sacred ground." Dorj shrugged him off and began tying orange marking tape around the trees. Stopped. Completely. The forest went silent. No birds, no insects. The air turned freezing cold. Batbayar's breath misted. Behind one of the birches, just at the edge of his vision, there was a figure. Tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that bent in too many places. It didn't move, just watched. Natasha ran. He heard Dorj shout after him but didn't stop. When he reached camp, gasping and wild-eyed, Ganbold sent another logger to find Dorj. The man found Dorj standing in the middle of the grove, facing the ovu, completely still. His face was blank, eyes unfocused. They brought him back to camp, but Dorj didn't speak. He lay down on his cot and closed his eyes. When they tried to rouse him for dinner, his skin was ice cold despite the fire burning nearby. Heard something circling the camp, heavy footsteps just beyond the firelight. Then came a voice, low and guttural, speaking ancient-sounding words none of them understood. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. One of the younger crew members later said he recognized a few words, archaic Mongolian mixed with something else, possibly Turkic or even older. The voice repeated the same phrase over and over, and though they didn't understand it, the tone was unmistakable, a claim, or perhaps a demand. Control, trying to maintain and ignore it, he convinced himself it was herders trying to scare them off. But privately, his hands shook as he loaded his hunting rifle. He didn't sleep that night. None of them did. Norch was gone. They searched everywhere, then finally checked the grove. They found him at the Ovu, standing in the same position. But this time, he wasn't alone. Wrapped around his neck and shoulders were elongated arms, gray, sinewy, with blackened nails. The thing behind him was crouched, its body folded impossibly, its face pressed close to Dorj's head. When Ganbald shouted, it looked up. Its eyes were hollow pits, and its mouth opened far wider than any human jaw could, revealing rows of teeth that looked more like splinters of bone than anything natural. All four of them. Behind them, they heard Dorj scream, a sound that cut off abruptly. Ganbald made the call. They were abandoning everything. They packed and drove out that same day. Authorities sent a search team a week later. They found Dorj's body at the base of the Ovu, cause of death listed as exposure. But the coroner's private notes mentioned unexplained bruising around the neck and shoulders, pattern inconsistent with human hands. The bruising, according to one account, resembled handprints, but with 6 fingers instead of 5, and the thumb placement was on the wrong side. A second Ganbald. He'd hanged himself in his apartment in Darkhan. He left no note, but neighbors reported hearing him pacing and talking to himself for days. One neighbor claimed she heard him arguing with someone in his apartment the night he died, but when police arrived, he was alone. Better returned, and locals say that if you pass near the sacred grove now, you can still see orange marking tape fluttering in the wind. But the trees themselves, still standing, untouched. Some say the tape remains as a warning, maintained by the Chotgor itself as a reminder of what happens when boundaries are crossed. The taiga forests are considered especially dangerous because they're dense and filled with unmarked sacred sites. Unlike the open steppe, the forest hides things. Mongolian shamans teach that old birch trees are conduits between worlds, and that groves marked with scarves are boundaries. Crossing them without permission is an invitation. The taiga Chotgor are said to be particularly vengeful because the forest allows them to move unseen, to stalk and disorient their prey over days rather than hours. What do you think happened? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories from across Asia. The sacred groves are dangerous, yes, but at least there, the warnings are visible. Blue scarves in the trees, ovus piled with offerings. You know when you're trespassing. But in our final story, the boundary isn't so clear. Sometimes, the Chotgor doesn't wait for you to come to it. Sometimes, if you've angered it badly enough, it follows you home. This final story was told to me firsthand by a woman I'll call Narangarel. She was a geology student who spent a summer conducting fieldwork in the Altai Mountains. What she brought back wasn't just rock samples. It was something that latched onto her, something that turned her apartment into a waking nightmare. In rare cases, Mongolian shamans say a Chotgor can follow. If you've taken something, broken something, or disrespected the space badly enough. Narangarel did all 3. Narangarel was 24, working on her master's thesis studying mineral deposits in the Altai Mountains. Her guide was an older Kazakh man named Askar. She'd hired him based on a recommendation from her professor, and he came with excellent credentials. He'd guided geological surveys, archaeological expeditions, even a BBC documentary crew years earlier. But from the first day, she noticed he was different from other guides she'd worked with. More cautious, more superstitious. He performed small rituals before they'd enter certain areas, sprinkling vodka, burning juniper, muttering prayers. Narangarel found it charming at first, a glimpse into authentic local culture. She didn't realize he was trying to protect her. On her third day, she noticed a cave entrance partially hidden by scree. She asked if they could explore it. Askar glanced at it and shook his head. Not that one. Bad place. Chotgor. Narangarel pressed him. This could be significant for her research. The rock formations visible from the entrance suggested possible rare earth mineral deposits. Her thesis depended on finding something noteworthy. He finally agreed, but wouldn't go inside. He stood at the entrance and told her she had 10 minutes, and to touch nothing that wasn't stone. Narangarel entered alone. The cave was shallow, littered with animal bones, small rodents mostly, but also what looked like the remains of a fox or wolf, its skull cracked open. At the back was a small altar carved into the rock, with remnants of offerings. Resting on a stone ledge was a necklace, polished turquoise and carved bone. It was beautiful, clearly handmade with exceptional skill. The turquoise alone would have been valuable, but it was the craftsmanship that captivated her. She knew she shouldn't touch it, but she rationalized. The cave was unmarked, the altar abandoned. Whoever left this was long gone. She convinced herself she was preserving it, rescuing it from decay. She slipped it into her pocket. When she emerged, Askar looked at her and said, "You took something." It wasn't a question. Narangarel lied, said she'd only taken photos and rock samples. Askar stared at her for a long moment, then turned and started walking. He didn't speak to her for the rest of the day. That evening, as they set up camp, she saw him preparing an elaborate offering, far more than his usual ritual. He burned a substantial amount of juniper, poured an entire bottle of irog into the ground, and prayed for nearly an hour. She asked if something was wrong. He didn't answer. That night, she woke to scratching outside her tent, slow, deliberate, like fingernails on fabric. It circled the tent twice, then stopped. In the morning, there were marks in the dirt, long gouges, too deep for an animal. Askar examined them and packed up the camp immediately. "We're moving," he said. "Now." They relocated 3 kilometers away to a clearing he said was protected. He built a large fire and kept it burning all night. The final week was tense. She felt watched constantly. Twice, she saw something moving on the ridgeline, a tall, stooped figure keeping pace with them. She mentioned it to Askar. He nodded grimly and said, "It's following you, because of what you took. You've stolen from the dead." He urged her to return the necklace before they left the mountains. She refused, partly out of pride, partly because she'd grown attached to it. It felt important, significant. In her tent at night, she'd take it out and study it, tracing the intricate patterns carved into the bone. She felt a strange pull toward it, almost a compulsion. Returned to Ulaanbaatar, she tucked the necklace into a drawer and tried to forget. But her apartment began to feel wrong. Always cold, even with the radiator on. She'd come home to find objects moved, books on the floor, cabinets open. Then came the dreams. Every night, she dreamt of the cave, but something was sitting at the altar, hunched and waiting, watching her. In the dreams, it spoke, not in Mongolian, but in something older, guttural. She'd wake up with the words on her lips, not understanding them, but feeling their weight. They heard rhythmic tapping from inside the walls. Tap, tap, tap. It continued for hours, always moving, always just out of sight. Her roommate stayed elsewhere that night. When she came back the next day to collect more of her things, she told Narengarel she wasn't coming back. "There's something in this apartment," she said. "I don't know what, but I'm not staying to find out." She woke one night to find every drawer and cabinet open, contents spilled. Her laptop displayed a photo of the cave entrance, a file she hadn't opened. Another night, she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door handle turned, back and forth, for a full minute. She called the police. They found nothing. The officer who responded suggested she was experiencing stress, recommended she see a doctor. But as he was leaving, she saw him glance back at her apartment door with an uneasy expression. He'd felt it too. She consulted her grandmother, who arranged a meeting with a shaman named Bachalun. He looked at the necklace briefly, then pulled his hand back as if burned. "This belonged to someone who died badly. You took it from a place it was meant to rest." The Chotgor guard such places. "It's followed you because you carry stolen remains." He pointed to the bone carvings. "These are human finger bones. This necklace was a burial offering. The person who wore this was a shaman, and they were not buried with proper rites. The Chotgor claimed their resting place, and you've disturbed it." Narengarel felt sick. She'd been wearing stolen human remains, sleeping with them under her pillow, treating them like a curiosity. The violation she'd committed suddenly felt enormous. The ritual took 3 hours. Bachalun burned incense, chanted, and made offerings to sever the connection between Narengarel and the Chotgor. At the end, he told her she had to return the necklace to the cave, personally. "If you don't, it will not stop, and one night you won't wake up. The Chotgor will claim you the way it claimed the person who wore this." He explained that the entity had marked her, and only by returning what was stolen and making sincere amends could she break that claim. So she did. She made the journey back, alone this time. Askar refused to guide her again. She hiked for 2 days, found the cave, placed the necklace on the altar, and spoke an apology for her disrespect. She burned a Khovsgol scarf, left vodka, and added her own offering, a silver ring her grandmother had given her, something valuable to show sincerity. She walked out without looking back, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Apartment, when she returned, felt different, lighter. The cold was gone. No more tapping, no more footsteps, no more dreams. Life returned to normal. She finished her thesis using data from other sites and graduated the following spring. Narengarel told me something else. On the drive back from the Altai, just as the sun was setting, she glanced in the side mirror, and for just a moment she saw it. A tall, angular figure standing on the side of the road, receding into the distance, watching her leave. Not following anymore, but watching, making sure she was truly gone. Highlights something critical. The Chotgor isn't mindlessly malevolent. It's a guardian, a punisher of transgressions. The idea that it can follow someone is rare but documented. It's a spiritual connection, a claim it places on the transgressor. Returning the stolen object and performing rituals can sever that connection, but only if done sincerely. Half-hearted apologies or attempts to trick the Chotgor only make things worse. Shamans warn that if you've angered one, you must show genuine remorse and make real sacrifice. The Chotgor can sense intention, and it does not forgive lightly. Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories from across Asia. Chotgor is a reminder that in Mongolia, the land itself has memory. The steppes, deserts, the mountains, they're watched over by forces older than any human history. respect the boundaries, honor the warnings, and never take what isn't yours. Thank you for watching. Stay safe out there.